Have you ever wondered how a small nation tucked away in northern Europe could possibly hold sovereignty over a colossal, icebound landmass sitting right next to North America? That land is Greenland, a place where everything, from its name to its location, is steeped in paradoxes that leave the world in awe. Covering an immense area of approximately 2.1 million square kilometers, Greenland proudly claims the title of the largest island on Earth. And yet, here lies an almost unbelievable contradiction. Despite its vast size, it is also the least densely populated place in the world, home to only about 56,600 people. Imagine a boundless expanse where you could travel hundreds of kilometers without encountering another human solar world of endless ice and snow, where only the howling wind cuts through the silence between the Arctic Ocean and the Atlantic. Geographically, Greenland is clearly a neighbor of Canada. Politically, however, it belongs to Denmark. So when did this island come to carry such an extraordinary fate, and why? To understand the present, we must journey thousands of years back in time, to the moment when the very first footprints were pressed into the pristine white snow. It was not the Danes who came first, but ancient peoples from the Arctic regions of what is now Canada. Cultures such as Sakak and Independence, emerging around 2000 BCE, were the island's earliest masters. Against all odds, they endured the bone-piercing cold, building some of the first known settlements, such as Deltaland, laying the foundations of proud early civilizations. But Greenland's history is anything but a straight line. It unfolds instead as a series of dramatic chapters of arrivals, moments of brilliance, and then mysterious disappearances into the void, leaving behind unanswered questions that continue to challenge scientists to this day. Welcome to Travel Story. Please leave a comment and share your thoughts with us. And once again, thank you for watching. To understand why Denmark came to possess such a distant land, we must turn back to the earliest pages of history, where archaeological traces tell a remarkable story of human survival against the odds. The true first inhabitants of Greenland were not Europeans, but groups known as the Paleo-Inuit. Around 2000 BCE, they undertook an arduous journey from the northern islands of what is now Canada to reach this frozen frontier. Try to imagine the brutality of that era. Small bands of people confronting eternal ice and darkness with nothing but the most primitive tools at their disposal. Among them, the Independence I culture established some of the island's earliest known settlements, most notably in the Delta region around 2050 BCE. This alone stands as a powerful testament to human resilience in the face of nature's harshest extremes. Around the same time, another culture emerged, the Sakak culture. What makes Sakak especially remarkable is its longevity. It endured continuously until around 800 BCE, making it the longest-lasting population ever recorded in Greenland's earliest history. When these early groups gradually faded away, Greenland did not simply slip into oblivion. Around 700 BCE, new waves of migration arrived, marked by the independence to culture and the emergence of early Dorset culture. These people managed to hold on to life on the island until roughly the middle of the 1st century BCE. But it is here that Greenland's history takes a deeply mysterious turn, one that archaeologists are still struggling to unravel. After the early Dorset people disappeared, Greenland entered a long, haunting silence. For hundreds of years, this immense island, one of the largest on Earth, became completely uninhabited. A vast frozen world lay dormant beneath layers of ice, untouched by human footsteps. It was not until around 500 CE that life finally returned. The late Dorset people began settling along the coastal regions of the Nares Strait, bringing with them new hunting techniques and survival strategies. Their presence laid the groundwork for the next chapter of Greenland's Story 1. That would unfold just before the arrival of the first Western explorers. Why these ancient communities vanished so abruptly, only to reappear centuries later, remains one of Greenland's greatest unanswered questions. What is clear, however, is that Greenland has never been an easy land to conquer, not even for those who once knew it best. After centuries of silence beneath the ice, Greenland's history truly ignited with the arrival of the first Westerners, and this chapter began with a twist of fate. Around the year 900, a Norse settler from Norway named Gunnbjorn was sailing toward Iceland when a violent storm blew his ship far off course. Lost amid towering waves and raging winds, he caught a fleeting glimpse of unfamiliar islands rising from the sea off the coast of Greenland. Yet it would take nearly 80 more years before anyone attempted to reach them. In 978, another Norwegian, Snæbjørn Galti, led the first true expedition to land there. That journey, however, ended in tragedy rife with conflict, and ultimately costing Snæbjørn his life just a few years later. The real turning point came with the arrival of a notorious yet brilliant figure, Erik the Red, a hot-tempered man by nature. Erik was exiled from Iceland after committing murder. With nowhere left to turn, he set sail in search of the land Gunnbjorn had once spoken of. After 3 years of exploration, Erik realized that if he wanted to build a realm of his own, he would need followers. And it was then that one of history's greatest marketing deceptions was born. Although the island was largely buried beneath endless ice and snow, Erik named it Greenland, literally, the Green Land. He believed that a name suggesting fertility and abundance would be far more persuasive than the harsh truth. The strategy worked spectacularly. In 985, Erik returned with a formidable fleet of settlers and founded the settlement of Brattle in the island's southwest. Life for the Vikings in Greenland became an epic tale of adaptation. They were not only warriors, but also skilled farmers and hunters. Their economy relied on a delicate balance. Cattle, sheep, and goats were raised for milk, cheese, and butter, while reindeer and seals were hunted for meat. Yet what truly made them wealthy traders was their pursuit of whales and polar bears. Valuable walrus ivory and rare bear pelts were shipped to Europe in exchange for timber and vital metal tools, resources Greenland itself lacked. While Erik was busy building a society, his son Leif Erikson achieved something even more astonishing. Around the year 1000, departing from Greenland, Leif sailed westward and reached a land he called Vinland, modern-day North America. This means the Norse reached the American continent nearly 500 years before Christopher Columbus. By this time, Greenland was no longer a forgotten frontier. In 1116, the Roman Catholic Church established a diocese at Gardar, under the authority of the Archdiocese of Nidaros in Norway. And in 1261, Greenland settlers formally accepted the rule of the Norwegian king, making the island an integral part of the Norwegian kingdom. Everything seemed to be at its peak. Yet few could have imagined that the shadows of collapse were already gathering, merging from the far north of the island, where new peoples were beginning to appear, quietly but decisively reshaping Greenland's destiny. What once seemed like a golden age for the Vikings soon fell under a growing, unsettling shadow that crept across the western settlements of Greenland. Have you ever wondered how a thriving community could simply vanish, leaving behind no clear trace of what went wrong? The turning point came around 1300, when the Thule people, the direct ancestors of today's Inuit, began migrating south from the Arctic. They did not merely arrive, they spread rapidly along Greenland's coastlines, bringing with them both cultural contact and violent conflict with the Vikings, who were struggling to hold on. At the same time, far away in Europe, shifting centers of power were quietly reshaping the island's fate. In 1319, Norway and Sweden were united under a single crown, and Greenland automatically became part of this new political union. But the truly decisive moment arrived in 1380. When King Olaf II of Denmark ascended the Norwegian throne, forging a deep political bond between Denmark and Norway that would endure for centuries. Just a few years later, under the resolute leadership of Queen Margaret I, the Kalmar Union was formed in 1397, uniting Denmark, Sweden, and Norway under one monarch. Greenland was now officially a piece of this Nordic superrealm. Yet while distant crowns were being merged and treaties signed, the Western settlers on Greenland were quietly facing extinction. The final written record of them dates to 1408, describing a wedding held at HVLC Church. Today, its stone ruins still stand silent witnesses to a vanished world. After that, an eerie silence descended upon the settlements. Even Pope Nicholas V, writing in 1448, expressed grave concern after receiving reports that Inuit attacks had destroyed most of Greenland's churches decades earlier. By the end of the 15th century, the Norse settlements in Greenland had collapsed completely. Where did they go? Did they perish from hunger and cold? Were they overwhelmed by conflict? Or did they quietly abandon the island in despair? To this day, their fate remains one of the greatest, most fiercely debated warological mysteries in human history. After the Kalmar Union dissolved in 1523, Greenland remained under the joint kingdom of Denmark-Norway, though contact with the island had grown increasingly tenuous. Greenland only returned to European attention in 1578, when English navigator Martin Frobisher accidentally rediscovered it during an expedition. In the years that followed, John Davis conducted further voyages, producing the first detailed maps of Greenland's coastline. By the 17th century, the waters surrounding Greenland suddenly came alive with massive whaling fleets from Germany, the Netherlands, and France, all racing to exploit its rich resources. Alarmed by the growing foreign presence, the Danish-Norwegian monarchy was forced to act decisively to assert its sovereignty, to make their claim unmistakably clear from the 1660s onward. The image of the proud polar bear was officially incorporated into the royal coat of arms. This was no mere decoration, it was a bold declaration to the world. Greenland belonged to Denmark and Norway. Thus began a quiet but determined struggle to defend this frozen land, a prelude to future legal battles and ambitious efforts to reclaim and recolonize Greenland in the centuries to come. As the 19th century dawned, a seismic political shift dramatically reshaped Greenland's fate on the world map. The turning point came in 1814, when the United Kingdom of Denmark-Norway suffered defeat in the smoke and chaos of the Napoleonic Wars. Under the harsh terms of the Treaty of Kiel, the Kingdom of Norway was forced to be ceded to Sweden. Yet one crucial detail would define the borders we recognize today, while Norway was separated. Its former overseas possessions, including Greenland, under Danish control. This is the fundamental reason why an island so deeply tied to Norwegian history, an early Norse settlement, has remained under the Danish crown to this very day. But the turbulence did not end there. Nordic relations were shaken once again when Norway gained full independence from Sweden in 1905, with a renewed surge of national pride. Norway began to assert claims over Greenland, arguing that the island had rightfully belonged to Norway prior to 1814. The dispute grew increasingly intense, straining diplomatic relations and ultimately demanding international arbitration. In 1933, a landmark ruling was delivered by the Permanent Court of International Justice, which formally and unequivocally affirmed Denmark's sovereignty over the entirety of Greenland. It was a major diplomatic victory, one that finally put to rest decades of legal uncertainty. Yet Denmark's greatest challenge in governing Greenland would arise from an even more devastating global conflict. In 1940, during World War II, Denmark was occupied by Nazi Germany. Overnight, Greenland found itself in a perilous position, completely cut off from its homeland. Recognizing the island's immense strategic value in the North Atlantic, the United States swiftly intervened, assuming protective control to prevent Greenland from falling into German hands. Throughout the war years, Greenland was no longer a distant, forgotten outpost, became a vital military stronghold. Although the United States formally returned control of the island to Denmark after the war ended in 1945, Greenland's status in the eyes of global powers had changed forever. The U.S. and its NATO allies continued to maintain and operate military bases there for strategic purposes. It was these violent upheavals of history and geopolitics that forced Denmark to reassess its relationship with Greenland, no longer viewing it merely as a colony, but as a crucial partner, gradually moving toward modernization and greater autonomy. After the storm of World War II, Greenland entered an entirely new EY1, marked by profound political transformation. In 1950, the island's southern and northern administrative zones were officially merged, creating a unified Greenland under Danish governance. Yet, just 3 years later, a historic milestone reshaped its status forever. Greenland was no longer classified as a colony. Instead, it became an integral part of the Kingdom of Denmark, with the right to elect representatives to the Danish Parliament in Copenhagen. This marked the first major step in a sweeping modernization campaign that Denmark set in motion across the frozen island. But closer integration also brought friction and tension. A defining moment came in 1973, when Denmark joined the European Economic Community, EEC. Greenlanders reacted with fierce opposition, fearing that European tariff rules would severely damage local interests, especially the fishing industry, the backbone of the island's economy. From this discontent, a powerful movement for self-rule began to rise. That aspiration became reality in 1979, when a local government was established and Greenland officially gained home rule. One of the most symbolic changes followed soon after. The capital city Godski was renamed Nuuk, a name rooted deeply in indigenous identity. The drive for self-determination grew even stronger in 1982, when Greenlanders voted to leave the EECA decision that took effect in 1985. That same year, Greenland's own national flag was raised for the first time, signaling the emergence of a distinct national identity. In the decades that followed, the self-governing administration worked steadily to strengthen indigenous culture and gradually reduce Danish influence. One of the most powerful symbolic shifts came in 2009, following a 2008 referendum, when Greenlandic became the island's sole official language, fully replacing Danish in official use. Today, while Denmark still retains authority over foreign affairs and defense, Greenland functions as a constituent country with extensive self-government, exercising broad control over most domestic and international matters. Although the island possesses vast mineral resources, its economy remains heavily dependent on fisheries, with a GDP of just over $3 billion. Greenland may rank modestly on the global scale, but its per capita income of around $58,000 places it among the world's highest standards of living. With a Human Development Index in the very high category, comparable to countries like Belarus, Greenland is confidently writing the next chapter of its history, a story of resilience, identity, and an enduring determination to rise beyond the ice and claim its unique place on the world stage. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. I'll reply as soon as possible or within 8 hours at the latest. My sincere thanks to all of you for your support.